Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Brubaker, and I'm your career transitions coach. Still trying to get used to saying that. Not quite sure how to say it, but what I do is that I work with job seekers of all ages and stages in their careers to help them highlight their transferable skills and then showcase them for their next forever jobs. It's that idea of transitioning from one role to another, taking advantage of the skills you have to leverage those skills to build your careers. Now, that's the end of my pitch for the moment. I do this as a labor of love. I've been doing this as a job search coach now for the past 8 years. And before that, I have over 20 years as a hiring manager, an HR recruiter, both inside and outside. So both a recruiter and a headhunter or an executive search recruiter, as well as a hiring manager and an HR business partner. So the information that we provide you is based on all of that, as well as all of the research that we do and all the connections that we have with recruiters and hiring managers and HR business partners throughout many different industries. Keep with what's going on. So we want to make sure that we're giving you the best information possible as we're moving forward. I support what I do here in these free programs with coaching. That's again the end of the pitch. I will put my information in the chat. If you would like to work with me, I'd love it. But otherwise, please connect. Please let me know how we can support you. Sue Griffey is also here. I'm going to let her introduce herself. By the way, we know that you don't really want to be here. Our goal is to help you move forward, but to give you the advice and support that you can in order to do that.
Thanks, Linda. Like Linda, I like being here with you all, even though it's not for a reason you want to be here. I run Sue Mentors, a global mentoring consultancy with people in transition all around the world. Lots of people in the US right now with a lot of layoffs that there have been lately in public health and federal government and research space, which is where I started my career. I help us celebrate with my pom-poms. I'm also the mentor with pom-poms. You'll see me celebrate everything that you don't even know it's a celebration, such as getting an interview after not having direct interviews to job applications, for example. I also keep my eye on the chat while Linda's facilitating this meeting and giving you advice. And I'll throw in advice where I have some to add as well. I'll add my information in the chat. Thanks again, Linda, for letting me be here with you and everyone else.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. For those of you who have been here before, you know that we always start these meetings with quick wins. Okay. So if you've had that win, whether it's an offer, an interview, whether you got turned down for a job, whether you made another networking connection, whatever it is, we'd like to share it. But we like to do it quickly. Sometimes these sessions go all the way on, but you'll also find that when we do these, we provide additional teaching moments as we go along. So we're sharing information in that support. Okay, Joe.
Yeah, Linda. Short. I was hired as a government contractor for IDOT last week.
Congratulations.
I'm effectively been out of the IT field for 32 years. Got the first IT job in 1993. I had to leave this industry because I'm burnt out. So now I'm just going to be doing administrative office work for the IDOT office. You know where Medieval Times is in Schaumburg, right?
I do.
Right off Central Road there is that's the IDOT office. It's about 18 miles one-way drive. Downside is I got to be in the office 5 days a week, but no, that's what I have a car for. I'm taking it in tomorrow to do one-time check over, and hopefully did the paperwork last night, and it's just waiting. They hired 3 people, so I got to wait for the group to get onboarded and probably get started next week.
Congratulations.
I just had to get consistent. It's too unstable, Linda, this IT field, one contract after another. I just had to leave it. I got burnt out. I just need something stable. Is IDOT, it's a state job while I'm a contractor. That's built-in job security. So as long as I do my job well, it's often administrative work like AR, AP, data processing. I don't have to worry about anything.
Excellent. Congratulations. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Mitchell.
Yes. So I applied for a role earlier this month. I had a first interview a week ago today, had a second one on Monday, and have the third one scheduled for tomorrow. I'm doing an interview prep session with Linda later today to get everything in order, and I'm hoping that the interview goes well and I will be receiving a job offer soon.
That would be fantastic. Thank you. And thanks for sharing that we're working together. By the way, one of the other things that you'll find when you work with me is that if I can, okay, I will make connections. So one of the things that I did with Mitchell is that I connected him with somebody else that we've worked with, that I've worked with previously, who has a job similar to the one that he's applying for. And I'm hoping that you two were able to connect and get some
Yeah,
ideas.
we have been. I've gotten some helpful tidbits from them.
Good. He's a good guy. I like him. Okay. David. There you go.
Well, I have two telephone interviews coming up this week. One's today for a business intelligence specialist with White House Behavioral Health Solutions. Tomorrow, I got one for an audience data specialist with the Ohio State University.
Congratulations. Okay. Job market is slow, but it's moving sometimes. Okay. Susan.
Good afternoon, all. Susan, Hartford, Connecticut. I have a fourth interview with a company tomorrow. I had applied on Monday, the 10th of March, interview with HR on the Wednesday, the 12th, interview with operations director on the 13th. In turn, he commented that I was a better fit for another role that had not yet been established and approved, but was in the works, and asked if I would like to be considered. Absolutely. Needless to say, last week, the job was actually approved and post Wednesday, and now I have a panel interview with 5 people tomorrow. So I'm really hoping something comes to fruition.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Okay. Anybody else have a quick win? David, your hand is still up. Is that because you forgot to take it down? There we go. Okay. Remember to keep putting your information in the chat.
Linda, we do have a win from Cindy, who can't be on camera because she's been sick, but she has an interview at the end of today. So we want to send her best wishes.
Congratulations. Good luck. Keep us
Oh,
posted.
thank you.
Cindy, can you, even though your camera isn't on, please, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. A recruiter found me, and I'm thinking, thankfully, I'm feeling a little bit better. I've been sick all week. So is my daughter. So it's for a company. They work with different healthcare organizations, but they're a food organization. Let's see, they're called Cook Unity. All of a sudden, I can't totally describe them. So it's a sales job. Let me see, where is their little, let's see. So they're the first of its kind platform that connects the world with a source of truly great food. So they deliver 35 million meals a year from the industry's best chefs to homes around the country. So fresh, ready to eat, and crafted with a passion that nourishes body and soul. That's a little paragraph on their website for the job description about them.
Okay, very nice. Congratulations. Keep us posted and let us know how we can help.
Okay, yeah, I practiced with a group yesterday, and I was practicing a star story.
Okay, so here's a quick piece of advice. Don't make it just a star story, make it a start story.
What's the difference?
The difference is star story means situation, task, action, result.
Right.
The last T, turning it into a start story, is that how does it tie into the new role? What's the transferability? People don't care about what it is you do necessarily or what you've ever done. They care about what you can do for them. So the better you are at making that transferability, that tie into their needs very clear, the more likely you are to move forward and to get that job.
Oh, okay. So tied into the work that I've been doing before.
The work that you've been doing before that matches what they need. Okay, it's not about what you've been doing before necessarily, it's about how you can meet their needs.
Okay.
And too many people fail to make that connection. And as somebody who's sat on that other side of the desk, when you can do that, you immediately move up higher in my mind because you've already told me that you know what I do and what you can do for me and how that fits what I need. So always turn those star stories into start stories. And remember
Like the transferable skills.
that, and there's even the stories that make sense for them. Okay.
Okay. So it's basically, let's see, how my experience relates to the job.
And that's exactly right. They want to know what you can do for them. They don't care about everything you've ever done.
Okay.
In fact, when you're thinking about those star or start stories, that's a great framework for your prep, thinking about it, but I don't want to hear it all. Okay. In your conversation with me, I don't need to hear, okay, necessarily what, the situation, the action, the task, the action, and the result. I don't need to hear all those steps. All I'm really interested in is the action and the result. And how that action and result can easily be used to do something for me.
Okay.
So, situation and the task, if you can bring those up and minimize, minimally talk about them, doesn't need to be a lot. You're just trying to set the stage, but focus in on action and result and make sure that the stories that you pick, the accomplishments that you're adding to your resume, to your LinkedIn or to your resume and your cover letter, all are those that are easily transferable to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have a story to share? By the way, I do like people to have their cameras on because if you can, and I know you can't always, but one of the things we're doing here is we're networking. And people are more likely to network and to reach out if they can see who you are. So it's not just your name on the screen, it's also the idea that we can see your picture. We're more likely to reach out to you. Also on LinkedIn as well. The idea is that if I can see your picture, you become a real person. And we want to be able to know that you're a real person. So here's a quick LinkedIn hint. If you have not made your photograph on LinkedIn visible to everyone on LinkedIn, go ahead and do that now. Go into your privacy settings. Make that LinkedIn photograph, your profile picture, available to everyone. We want to know who you are. Marianne.
Hi, thanks for explaining to me what Chicagoland is all about because you guys kept on talking about that and I had no idea. Okay, so my very sad story is I had rush, rush, rush. We have to interview you, blah, 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 blah. I have the interview and then I don't get the job. So that's not really a success, but I just thought I'd share. There's just all this rush, 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 and then nothing.
Unfortunately, that happens, Marianne. By the way,
I know.
so send them a thank you anyway.
I did.
Okay. And one of the things we are finding, the same way that Susan said that she managed to get a job that was, or to an interview for a job she hadn't applied for, people are interested in the fact that you're still interested in them. And those continuing contacts really make a difference. So thank them for what they did. Thank them for what you learned from them. Ask if you can continue to keep in touch for future
Oh,
openings.
I didn't ask about that piece, but okay.
And then do that. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing
Thank
that
you.
you can do, sure. The other thing you can do in those thank yous after you didn't get the job is that this is your time to maybe get some feedback about what happened by turning it from that into, can you be my mentor? In effect, without saying that. Can you give me some suggestions? I really enjoyed this. What can I do to better prepare myself for a role like this with you or someone else in the future? Can you give me some ideas? They may or may not be willing to answer, but I'm finding that that sticks in their heads because what you're saying is not, oh, why didn't you pick me? But what can I do better? How can I better support you and other people? And so that will be something will also make you stand out.
I asked for feedback. I'm waiting. I don't think I'll get it.
Most time you're not going to get feedback.
Right.
If you ask for it, why didn't I get the job? Okay, or can you give me feedback on the interview? Because legally they can't provide it that way. But asking them to do it as a mentor, what can I do to better prepare myself? What advice do you have? Not what did I do right or wrong, but what advice do you have so that I can better prepare for a role like this in the future? You are more likely to do that. And they are more likely to accept continuing conversations.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Okay, we've got a nice sized group today. So remember to continue to put your information in the chat. I'm going to add some more of mine as well, and a couple of resources. So we all know that job market is tight. We are seeing some people getting interviews and hires, and that's fantastic, but we're also seeing more layoffs every day. My cracked crystal ball says that this is going to be a tight job market for a while, which is one of the reasons that not only do we need to support one another and share resources, but also that you have to make sure that everything that you are sending out, all the contacts that you are making, are those that are meaningful to the other person and not just to you. You need to be able to show how you benefit someone else. And if you're doing networking, it's at least to start with, it's more about them than it is about you. It's how can you find out about them, what they're doing, what's advice and support, not, hey, do you have a job for me? Okay. So I'm going to share some of those resources. And by the way, Marianne, thank you for sharing this one. Okay, let's see if I can find it. I didn't even add it up here. Oh, social impact boards. So we know that, okay, lots of resources out there. When you're looking for jobs, you should look in lots of different places. If you are a former federal, or think you may be a former federal worker or in a federal related industry and your funding has been cut and you think you've lost your job, or you think you may be losing it, here are two resources for you. There are lots of different people who are out there to support everyone. All right. Trying to see what else I got. So let's talk resumes, because that's what we're really talking about today. And if anybody has questions, by the way, before we do that, is anybody new to the group that wants to introduce themselves? We have time for maybe two people to do a quick introduction.
Hi. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi. Oh, first time to the group. So, let me see. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Evans. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. I am a licensed counselor / EAP counselor who is pivoting into the HR space. And so I am looking for a human resource business partner, employee relations positions, and preferably remote. And I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes,
Anyone else?
my name's Dennis Pielak. I'm Margot's husband, and I'm retired, but for the last 8 years, but looking to get back in the work cycle or maybe do some consulting work, kind of getting a little bored with retirement. So looking to add a little bit more of a challenge to my life at this point in time.
Doing what? And I'm sorry, I'm looking for.
Yes, I'm a market research professional. Did market research, financial analysis, acquisitions, things of that nature, strategic planning.
Okay. Sorry, I was just looking for you on the screen, couldn't find you. I apologize.
I think I'm under Margot for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw Margot, but I also thought I saw Margot's picture. There she is. Oh, you're both together, but you're not on screen, Dennis.
Oh, I'm not? Okay. Let me see.
So you need to get closer to her.
Well, I'm on my computer.
That could be. In any event.
Yeah.
So next time.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else?
I'll go.
Who's I?
Jeff Lewis.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi. Um, I used to be a member of the group a long time ago. I have been in a survival job the past few years. And as much as I love it working in a school with the kids in the high school and coaching, I'm dying to get back into property management, whether it be commercial or retail or even hospitality. And I'm in the Chicagoland area, but I am willing to relocate if necessary.
That's new. Okay. Good. By the way, are you working with Isaac? Sorry.
Yes, I
Private
am.
conversation.
Yep.
Um,
Just texted him even this morning.
okay. So we do a little bit of that supporting one another here too. And so when I asked about Isaac, Isaac is one of my sons who works at the same school that Jeff is doing some work at, and he runs the archery program, and Jeff is doing some work with some of the archery teams. So I was just asking whether you've probably seen him more recently than I have.
Could be.
In any event. So we're here to support each other and give each other ideas and support and information in any way that we can. Now, one of the things that I will admit, I don't always see the questions in the chat. So if you've got a real question, make sure that you put your question there, but use the word question in all caps so that we can easily find it. Okay. And raise your digital hand as well, and we'll try and find you that way. One of the things that I saw in the chat that I glanced very quickly was the idea of when you're doing an application, should you tell them that you might have a disability? So putting on my recruiter hat, that question is asked from a legal standpoint. It is not one that we can consider. That information actually goes into a separate file in the ATS system. It is not part of your application. Now, should you tell people that you have a disability? You might, if you think that it might help you get hired, or more importantly, if you have a disability where you could use some added support in order to do the job. For example, one of my clients that we helped talk to earlier had a hearing issue, and she needed to have a specialized phone. Okay. Or she needed to make sure that if she was in an interview, that she was actually in a situation where she could see the person's face. That's an accommodation. You can use that accommodation either on the job or even during the interview process. And in the interview process for something like this, for example, turn on closed captioning. It's okay. But if that's the case, if you need that accommodation either for the interview or for the job, then yes, say so at least when you get that interview. You don't need to disclose it beforehand. But do you need to disclose any kind of ADA disability? You don't need to worry about that. Okay, you can. It won't hurt you. But in this environment, unfortunately, it's not going to help you either. Okay. And honestly, when the ADA first came out, and I've read the book recently, there are so many different ways that you can classify as disabled. So for example, I need my glasses to find my glasses, which under the ADA qualifies me as someone who is disabled, if I wanted to list it that way, because my vision is at a certain level. Now, does it cause me an issue? No. Okay, as long as I've got my glasses on, I'm fine. And now sometimes I actually take my glasses off in order to read. But in any event, there are so many different things that can count. So the only thing that I'm really concerned about is whether or not, from a hiring standpoint, whether or not you need an accommodation in order to get your job done. And Cindy, if I don't put my glasses in the right place every night, I'm lost. So I completely understand. Was there another question there that I missed by any chance about that? Did that answer your question, AJ? Excellent. Okay. So there's all of that. Now, so let's talk resume. You all know that resumes have changed. They've changed a lot. And there are a lot of myths out there. And I'll be honest with you, almost everyone you talk to is going to give you different answers when they take a look at your resume. But I'm going to give you information today, or we're going to give you information today that's going to be to some extent universal. We want to make sure that what you're doing is going to work for the jobs for which you are applying. And that's really what counts. So if I say that, and you all have resume questions, by the way, go ahead and put them in the chat, raise your digital hand. This is an interactive group for those of you who haven't been here before. We want to make sure that your questions get answered because this is the only way that it works for everybody. Okay. So myth number one, how long should your resume be? Put in the chat how many pages you think your resume should be. Just put in a number. Excellent. Okay. Love the interactive chat. So let me tell you that to some extent, my answer is going to be it depends. Okay. From a recruiter and a hiring manager standpoint, we will probably stop looking after 2 pages. In fact, we may not even look beyond the first page. You have 2 to 9 seconds to grab my attention. From an ATS standpoint, and for those of you who don't know, ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. They will read it all. But the standard practice is no more than 2 pages, unless what we're talking about is a resume for a government position, in which case the longer the better. Or if you are talking about an academic position, in which case you may, or a scientific position, where you may want an additional page that talks about some of those speaking engagements, the writing, the added information, the patents, and so on. But standard information is no more than 2 pages. Now, for those of you who said longer, okay, I did see a couple of people say 3 or longer. The idea is that we want to make it shorter because we want to make everything you read relevant. You've heard some information about how long should you go back in terms of your experience on a resume. A lot of us have a lot of experience. I've already told you I have well over 20 years plus 8 years doing this. That gives you some indication. Would I put all of that information on a resume or go back 20, 30, 40 years on a resume? Probably not. Because honestly, things have changed so much over that time frame that the information you put in your resume, the things that you did 20 years ago, may no longer be up to date or relevant to the job you want to do now. So my recommendation, and the recommendation of most recruiters and most hiring managers, is on the resume, in terms of putting in the bullet points that explain what you do, stick to the last 10 to 15 years. However, if you have experience that is relevant to the job you want to do, or companies that you work for that you think are important for that next job, then there are other ways of adding that to your resume and being able to talk about it as well. Sorry, I'm just looking for something real quick. I want to share a couple of slides with you. I don't really do this often, but I'm going to do it here. So I am going to share this. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. So how do you handle the older resume, the older experience? If it is relevant to the new job, what I would recommend is that you add a new heading, and it's called additional related experience or additional relevant experience. Where you do that, or what you list there, would be either or just the company name and the title. You don't have to list dates or bullets. But what it does is it gives you the ability at that point to go back to that resume and or to your interview stories and add the skills that you learned there that are important to the new job that aren't anywhere else, that give you the ability to talk about an accomplishment from that time frame and add it to the resume and to your stories without tying it necessarily to the job. But it gives you that ability to demonstrate how you match them without making that experience older. Now, I'm not necessarily concerned about the experience being older in the sense of making you older. I'm older than everybody in the room. But we know from a recruiting and a hiring manager standpoint, because they keep telling us that that older experience is good as background. It's something that they may want to hear, but it's not something that they will necessarily rely on because in most cases, things have changed so much. Question about the older experience. The bulk of your experience is with one company, say for 20 plus years. So I would probably make it, because a lot of us, that was our goal, right? To be with one company for a very long time, actually from the start of our career to the end. But my guess is that you have more than one title, Pam, in that time frame. So there are several ways that you can do it. One of which is you can list it all. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or you can list it as a career. So let's say you've got 3 titles within that time frame. You can say, use that job title change as the time frame for that job, and then add the additional pieces with that company name and additional job titles as additional related experience. It's strictly up to you, but one of the things that's nice about having lots of companies or lots of job titles at the same company is that it demonstrates that longevity. Unfortunately, companies don't value that as much as they used to. What I like about it, though, is that it shows that you've had that career growth. And you can do that both with putting in that date break based on job title change, and then the rest of it under additional related experience, or you can do it by listing it all under the same job. And I'm going to show you an example in a minute. Professional licenses that have expired. Professional licenses that have expired don't do you much good unless you can easily renew it. If renewing it means that you have to take a test or just pay your dues, that's one thing. But putting in an expired license does you no good. Sorry. All right, I'm going to go back to this. So what should you include on your resume? We all know that there are some things that are no longer appropriate on a resume. We want to make sure that you have information in your resume that is easy for me to find, which means that your contact information should be clickable links. Do not include a street address. City, state, that's fine. But street address, absolutely not. Nobody's going to be contacting you by snail mail to set up an interview. And in this day and age with privacy issues, don't do that. The other thing is that I would make sure that one of the things that you're doing is that you have clickable links to your LinkedIn URL and to your email address. Easy for me to find you. So however it is that you're putting that information in, whether you're doing it as a PDF, whether you're submitting it as a Word doc, make sure that your links are clickable. give me every ability to find you. So I often talk about formatting resumes for two reasons. One of which is you're formatting it for the ATS system, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you're also formatting it for me, the dummy on my side of the desk or screen. The ATS, if it can read it, isn't going to care where that information is, that applicant tracking system. Me, you need to make it extremely easy for me to read it. Remember, 2 to 9 seconds for me to decide how much additional time I want to spend on that resume. Okay. So clickable link, easy for me to contact you, right up at the top. Each resume should be labeled with the name of the position for which you are applying. As a recruiter, hiring manager, I want to know, and we all know that this isn't true, but I want to know that this is the job you are applying for, because this is the job you want. A generic resume isn't going to cut it. You need to tailor your resume for me. Okay? And for this particular job. I would not actually put your information in a header. The problem with a header is that many times that information isn't clickable, Joe, depending upon the system that's there. So be careful. So if you're doing it, you want to make sure that it is a clickable link even after you close that header. Right. And the other thing is that's absolutely true, Sue. Most of the ATS systems that I've ever used, if your information is in a header, I can't read it. I can't tell you the number of resumes I've pulled out of an ATS system where I have no idea who you are because you put your information in that header. Not a good thing. So headers are not necessary at all. And in many cases, they will work against you. The simpler the formatting of your resume, the better. So unless you are in a creative role, in which case you may want 2 separate resumes, one for the ATS, one for that initial submission, and one to send to the hiring manager or recruiter as a follow-up if you've got their contact information or when you're doing an interview or before an interview. So no headers for the information that you are submitting to the ATS. No columns, no tables, no text boxes, no icons. Plain, simple, dull, boring Word document is best. Not just for the ATS, but for me. I'm reading your resume on screen. I'm only normally writing it out or printing it out if I'm walking into an interview with you. But otherwise, it's all on screen. So how can a recruiter tell if the interview or the resume has been tailored without mentioning the company in your statement? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Laura. Can you ask a question?
Yeah, I'm applying for a bunch of different jobs and in slightly different areas or sectors. And so I tailor my resume based on what words show up in the job description. But how can a recruiter know that it's not a generic for that field rather than specific for that organization?
Even if you've got that tailored resume or that different types of resume for different kinds of positions, each job posting, even though they may be similar, is going to have different words that they use. It's going to have different skills that they're looking for, different ways of highlighting what it is that's important for them. So if you're using their words, you're talking about their hot buttons, the things that are most important to them, then that's the way that they tell that it's tailored. And I'm going to show you a way of doing that. Let me see. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the older information. I think you can see this. And if you can't, let me know. So there's lots of different ways of highlighting what you can do. Now, many of you have, I'm assuming, a section on your resume that talks about skills, expertise, okay, whatever it is you call it. And for many of the resumes that I've seen, you do it in this bottom format, where you're just listing one after another, and they just run all into one another. The resume format that most recruiters, most hiring managers prefer is one that makes it easy for them to read. So if you've got all these skills here, whoops. Okay. In this version, you're listing everything you can do. And in many cases, it's things that you do that aren't necessarily important for the job. In this version, my eye is immediately drawn to what you can do. And so those skills, that expertise is obviously tailored to, or hopefully tailored to what it is you can do for me. Those are the keywords I'm going to focus in on, and my eye is immediately drawn to that section of the resume. In this case, the white space makes a big difference. It also means that you have to really limit what you're doing, what you're adding there, to what it is that's important for the job you're looking at. Remember, resumes are about what's in it for them, not everything that you've ever done. I don't care. Your cover letter, your interview stories, your accomplishments should all be based on what it is you can do for them, not just everything. And so when we're thinking about, Laura, what skills and how I can tell that you've tailored it to me, these key words here in that skills or expertise section are the first place that I do it. The other thing, honestly, and I know it's just a trick, but it works, is to label that resume that you're sending out. It's not going to be a generalist name and all the things you can do. You're labeling that resume with the name of the position that you're actually applying for at that particular organization. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So again, the reason that I like doing the skills this way, this is not a table. It's not columns. It's tabbed across the page because we know that tabbing across the page makes it all readable by the ATS. We know that putting it 3 across the page psychologically makes a difference. Not only is it immediately where my eye is drawn, but it also means that it's easy for me to see how you match my job. So when you're thinking about those skills, that expertise, whatever it is you want to call it, think about them as Boolean search terms. If I were to be able, remember, 2 to 9 seconds, and I'm using that as a way of trying to decide which resumes I want to see more, I'm going to be looking for those skills that are most related to my job that are going to help me separate your resume from everybody else. So if everybody says time management, multitasking, communication, that's not going to help me narrow it down. But if you say, for example, in a communications resume, executive newsletters or employee newsletters, and that's one of the things I'm looking for, that's very different. So make sure you're using their terms. Think about those skills, that expertise area, as areas of, or as terms that are used in a Boolean search to help limit or find the people that I'm looking for. Okay. The other thing is when you're doing this, this way, you'll notice that there are no bullets before those skills. One of the things we find is that when you add a bullet or a symbol before these skills, whether you're doing it in this format or this format, that what happens is that the ATS gets confused And when I'm reading it online, it looks funny. Sorry. So just tab it across the page. Remember, you're formatting it not just for that applicant tracking system, you're also formatting it for me, the dummy on this side of the desk or the screen.
No, this is Sherilyn. Hi. I just have a quick question. So just to confirm, what you're saying is use the top example you just showed us on our resume where it's the 3, 3, 3, just tab it and to tailor it to the verbiage in the job description
Yes,
that they're
absolutely.
posting. So don't necessarily don't necessarily ascribe it to what you've done in the past, but ascribe it more to their job description.
And that's exactly right. I don't care about everything
Okay,
you've
thank
ever
you.
done. I care about what you can
Okay.
do for me. And so that's one
Okay.
of the things that many job seekers forget, Sherilyn, is that it used to be, okay, and here's the way resumes have changed and how job search and interviewing has changed. It used to be that you could say, company says, I want you to do A, B, C, and D. You say, oh, I can do A, B, C, and D, and I can also do X, Y, Z, and Q. And they'd say, that's great. Now they say, I'm looking for A, B, C, and D. And you say, oh, I can do A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, and Q. And they say, I don't care. X, Y, Z, and Q means that you haven't read my description. It means that you're not necessarily interested in the job I need you to do. It means that you may be too expensive. It means that you may be bored. But more importantly, it means you haven't taken the time to really see what it is that I need you to do and to tell me that that's not only what you can do, but that's what you want to do. Adding that X, Y, Z, and Q, everything that you've ever done, or things that aren't related to the job, tells me that you're more interested in what's in it for you than what's in it for me, the hiring manager. And that's not as likely to get you that job or that interview.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Makes sense. It's a different way of thinking about it, but
It is.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. So one of the things that I actually recommend, and if you do a coaching session with me, you'll see that I do that, is that we put your resume on one side of the screen and we put a job description on the other. And we actually use the highlighter pen, copy it into a Word doc, use the highlighter tool within Word to highlight what those skills are, what the things that they're looking for are, so that you can not only tailor it to their keywords, but also look at how often something is mentioned. That tells you what their hot buttons are, and you can then tailor it to that as well.
Good to know. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Linda.
Absolutely. Are bullets in the body of the resume all right? Absolutely. In fact, I want you to include them. The only place I want you not to include them would be in that skills section, because again, you're tabbing across the page and it doesn't look good. But yes, bullets in the accomplishments section, and I want you to talk about accomplishments. We're going to talk about those now. Or I want in the experience section of your job, absolutely, bullets work. The other thing is, don't use paragraphs. If anything is longer than 2 lines, other than your statement at the very top, but if it's longer than 2 lines, it should be two bullets, or you need to remove all the extraneous words. So what we're really talking about is putting together what's called a skills and accomplishments-based resume. And I'm going to show you an example in just a moment. So I want you to talk about the accomplishments. And by accomplishments, remember we talked about things like communication skills. You developed a communication plan that increased click-throughs by X%. Anything you can do to quantify what you do will really help. It helps you stand out and it helps me to see what you can do for me. So my recommendation is that not only do you customize every time, talk about what you can do for them, not everything that you've ever done. And here's kind of a formatting that it's going to look like. So in this case, I changed some of these because I made this a generic resume. Your email address should be here, your phone number, your LinkedIn URL. Clickable links. You can put your location on the same line as the rest. It depends upon what kind of space you have. Talk email address for a moment. Your email should be a Gmail address. Yes, I know many of you have different kinds of email addresses, but it's one of the things that using a Gmail address, even if you're just using it for this job search, tells me that you are aware of the Gmail platform or the Google platform, because that's used by so many different companies as a variety of things. And it also says that you are more up to date in terms of LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, but current technology. Email address, LinkedIn URL, and if you haven't shortened your LinkedIn URL, let me know and I will put something in the private group showing you how to do that. Okay, or we'll do that in another session. Title goes here. Anything that you say in this section, and this section is honestly a little too long, I will probably, as a recruiter, stop reading. The ATS will read it. ATS will read, if it can read your information, it will read anything that's there. Human eye will probably stop reading after about 3 to 4 lines. So you want to make this short and sweet, and you want to make sure that what you're doing is, instead of saying, for example, proven success in analyzing data, okay, that what you're doing is you are actually providing that analysis. Take out all the filler words, make things actionable, and make every word count. So here's how she did this idea of those areas of expertise drawn directly from the job posting. We often say, do you have to be careful about copying and pasting? In this case, copying and pasting is okay. Take it from the post. But your eye is directly drawn to that section. The next section is really that area of accomplishments. You can call it highlights instead if you like. But these are very specific, very quantifiable things that I can easily see how what you've done matches what I need. Now, in terms of that skills section, you're looking probably for anywhere from keywords. You're looking for anywhere from probably 6 to 18 of those terms, 21 max. After that, it looks like you're just overloading. In the accomplishment section, this is the 2 to 8 most significant things you've done anywhere in your history that are relevant to the new job. Now, one of the reasons for pulling it out is to make it, remember, 2 to 9 seconds, top part of the resume. I want to be able to see it. But more importantly, when you're putting those accomplishments that are relevant to me at the top, it gives me the idea that you're making that transferable to me without tying it to an old job. If it's tied as a bullet under the old job, I see it in that old job. But if you pull it out, you're showing me what's most important to me, regardless of where you did it. And again, regardless of the time frame. By the way, if you all have questions as I'm doing this, do let me know. So here's where you do that professional experience. See, the bullets are here. Okay. And I can add this to our private group. I will add the, at least this resume example. Education is here. Education, certifications, and relevant training. Some of you have asked whether or not you should include dates on your degrees. you're going to add them to some extent to your application anyway. So if you want to add them, that's fine. But I most want to see, okay, if it's been 5 years or more, take out the grade point average. It doesn't matter. Take out the clubs that you did. They don't matter after 5 years. Probably not after your first job. But if you have specific certifications or classes that you've taken, especially within the last 5 years, that relate to the job you want to do, absolutely add them. And by highlighting them here, talking about relevant training, it doesn't have to be everything. You're showing me not only that you have the ability and the desire to continue to learn, but also that you recognize what's important for me in the new job. Okay. You don't necessarily have to tailor the education, but what I would do is, a lot of you are taking lots of classes, and that's fantastic. You don't have to list all of them, but put in those that are most important to the job, if that makes any sense. On LinkedIn, add them all. Yes, in terms of LinkedIn training, if it is relevant to the new job, especially if it's learning a new skill. But remember, we're trying to keep this to no more than 2 pages if we can. I missed some of the questions here. So if you've got, I'm willing to stay on for another couple of minutes, for another half an hour, up to a half an hour if we need to. Before I do that, we leave, since I know that there are people who need to leave. Okay. What I would do is, if you've got those questions and we haven't answered them today, I will answer them either in a post or in our private chat, so that we make sure that those get done. And sometimes in both. So contact it, yes. So Tracy, you said if you're putting in the contact information, the summary, the accomplishments, and the skills, you're absolutely. That's a first top third to a quarter of a page. That's what I'm going to see. That's what I want to see to make me decide whether or not I want to move forward. So there are a lot of questions about, could sample docs? Yes, I will add them to the private chat. And I will put the link to the private chat in there as well. So remember that one of the things we want to do, okay, and I have to figure out how to get out of that. Okay, so that I can pull up my documents again. So one of the things that we want to do in terms of the resume is, you need to grab my attention. The ATS system it's an electronic filing cabinet. Stands for Applicant Tracking System. And what that ATS does is, as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, there are ways that I can put in the keywords that I'm most interested in. Sometimes, to be honest, now an AI will do that. But it will highlight those resumes that have those terms in them. And it's almost as if they're using a yellow highlighter. In fact, when I see that resume pull out, those terms are highlighted in yellow for me, regardless of where they are, whether they're in that top third of the page in terms of those skills, or whether they're in some of the bullets underneath your individual jobs. Won't make any difference. It's highlighted for me. What happens when I'm looking at those resumes is that we know that recruiters are getting lots and lots. We know that you should be applying directly online at the company's website. We know that sending your resume in through a networking contact is a good thing, but you still have to get it in a format that's going to be read by the ATS, because it's going to have to go there anyway. We know that good recruiters are going into the ATS to do things like happening with Susan, where it may not have been the job that she initially applied for, but either through the ATS system or through an interview, they're saying, you might be better fit for this one. Can we talk to you about that? What the ATS system does, it's not going to automatically reject you. That is a myth. If the ATS can read it, the ATS does not do the rejection. If it can't read it, yes, that will probably be an automatic rejection because nobody can read your resume. If there are screening questions associated with that application, when you submit your resume, those can be automatic knockouts. Do you have X number of years? Those questions are more often asked if you are applying through other sites rather than going directly to the company website. Another reason to go directly to the website. Third reason for going directly to the company website rather than applying through any other sites that you're using to find positions is that when you apply directly on the company's website, several times during the course of the day, as a recruiter, I will get an email from that ATS system saying, new resumes have been added, take a look. That doesn't happen if you're coming in from other sites. So I'm going to be willing to do that and take a look at that. And okay, so David, the question that you asked is, ADP lets you skip having your resume scanned by the ATS. That's not true. ADP is one of those hiring platforms, as well as a company that is doing their hiring. So it's not going to allow you to skip having the ATS read your resume. What it does is sometimes you are now getting the option of having the ATS, having the AI scan your resume. They're two different things. If they're asking you the question about AI scanning your resume, it is okay to opt out. What that's trying to do is have your resume be used as a way of training that company's ATS system about what kinds of things to look for. It will not screen you in or out. It is a tool to help them grow their AI system for that ATS. Now, many of you know that I've suggested that you opt out of letting LinkedIn use the information that you post to train their AI. By the same token, I'm perfectly okay with you opting out of having the ATS use your resume to train their AI. It will not affect whether or not you get hired. It will not affect whether or not you get an interview. When the ATS scans your resume, it will prioritize them. It's not going to screen you out, but if it can read your resume, it's going to look for those keywords that I put in, that I tell the rest of the recruiter or the system are most important, or that I tell the ATS are most important, or that I tell that AI are most important. It's going to help me prioritize which resumes to look at first. Now, that means that if there are 100 resumes and I've looked at 20 and 20 are the ones that I want to narrow down to 5, then I might not get to yours, which is, again, another reason that you need to prioritize customizing that resume, showing them what you can do for them in a format that not only can be read, but that uses their words and that makes it really clear what you can do for them. Okay. I know I didn't get to all of them, the questions. Are there other questions, excuse me, that I can answer right away? How do you avoid answering the question, what year you okay. So yes, we're all worried about ageism on resumes, and we're worried about ageism on the application. So hint, as a recruiter, here are the things that I look for on a resume or on an application. If you have included a resume that I can read, these are the only things that I look for on your application. I will look for, are you legal to work in the US or do you need sponsorship? Have you been convicted of a felony? Sometimes I'll look for whether or not you've listed a salary requirement. That's it. The rest of the information is there for the system itself, for that file cabinet, for the legal purposes. Okay. But it's also so that when I get to the point of doing a reference check, a background check, that I can do that. It's not going to be screen out or screen in there, Jeff, necessarily, because as a recruiter, I'm not necessarily going to look at it. Now, does that mean that I couldn't put something into my ATS saying screen out or prioritize those who graduated before? I could do that. But that's going to come from your resume as well. So, okay. So do you want to scan the resume and populate the application? Yes. However, I will tell you that when they do that, it's often badly formatted, and you're going to have to redo it anyway, whether you've submitted it as a PDF or as a Word doc. Do not submit, by the way, as anything other than a PDF or a Word doc. I know that many of you are using Google Docs to format what you're doing and to play with it because you don't have any other source, and that's okay. But do not submit it as an Apple in Apple format. Most people can't read it, and most ATS systems can't. And if the company is not using an Apple format, it will be very difficult for me to read. Word, PDF, yes. Okay. And even in Google Docs, you can save it as a Word doc, or you can save it as a PDF and use that to submit. How do you avoid using? Absolutely. Do not use symbols in your resume. Period. Okay, the only symbol that you should use would be the bullet. And when you're putting in bullets, don't add it as a symbol. Use it from the drop-down box, either in Word or in Google Docs. Let it add it for you. That way it is something that we know can be read. But no ampersands, no stars. Okay, this is not your LinkedIn profile. Okay. It's not necessarily that it will stop reading, Sandra, after they encounter those. It's just that it can't read it. What about the pipe symbol? You're not talking about, I wouldn't add pipe symbols. I would not add symbols of any kind on your resume. Okay. Now, the only place that you might do it would be if you're, where would you use it, Sandra? Can you unmute?
Oh, sorry, Linda. Yes.
We can't hear you, Sandra.
Sorry, when separating skills.
I don't want you to do that. Remember, what we talked
Okay.
about was tabbing them across the page.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so no pipes, no bullets there. 3 across visually makes a difference. 3 across is psychologically, for whatever reason, not only appealing, but makes an important difference. It says you understand what's going on. So 3 across works. That white space works. No bullets, no pipes, no nothing. This is not LinkedIn.
Is a pipe symbol the little line that is vertical? The little vertical line?
Right. So I don't
Okay.
want you to include those.
Okay.
Okay. ATS systems
Thank
have
you.
a hard time reading them. And remember, white space in this case works. You're not telling me everything that you can do. You're telling me what you can do for me. And the easier you make it for me to see that, the better off. One of the things we found, for example, with the ATS, if you're using that pipe, okay, as an example, or a bullet for those resumes, and you're just putting one right after the other without that white space, it makes it more difficult both for the ATS to read and for me to read. Your goal is to make it easy for me. So don't put bullets, by the way, in between your points of contact either. Up at the very top of the resume. Take those out. System has difficulty with them. Add either spaces or a tab. Okay. Others, in terms of resumes themselves. I know we went through this very quickly. So here's some things to include. You want to include skills. You want to include accomplishments, something that is quantifiable. And you can quantify something even if it doesn't have numbers. You want to include what you can do for them. You want to highlight that top section of your resume. So that, remembering that I've got 2 to 9 seconds, so the easier it is for me to see that, the better off. You want to eliminate all fancy formatting. Plain, dull, boring, Word document look is best. I know there are a lot of formats out there. Don't do it. Okay. No columns. You waste a lot of space. No icons. I can tell that your phone number is a phone number without telling me. Okay. And I don't care whether it's a home number or a cell phone. It's the way I can get in touch with you. And that's what counts. Eliminate the word responsible for. Responsible says, here's what I was supposed to do. Tell me what you did instead. Every bullet should start either with an action verb or with a result, and include the action verb afterwards. Don't tell me that you're good at something. Show me. So saying that you're a skilled leader tells me nothing. But led a team of X to do Y, that tells me something. That demonstrates it. How do you quantify without numbers? That's another whole topic that we can talk about. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, I know that a lot of people have already left. David, I know you've already done this. Jim, you too. You've added information into this sheet, but I want to know that what we're talking about works for you all. So I've put together a Google Sheet that if you've got this link, you can add your information to. You can tell me what topics you want to hear. You can put idea in the chat, all in caps. You can put topic all in caps. You can put speaker all in caps. You can add it to this Google Doc. But I want to know that it works for you. If you've got ideas that you don't want to add there, then directly PM me on LinkedIn. If you haven't connected with me, please do. Okay. Next week, by the way, it's an open session on Ask Me Anything. So we'll go there. I know we only have a couple of people here left. Okay. So modifying education based on the job description. So you don't necessarily have to modify the education, but you might want to modify the classes that you add or the order in which you add them, the extras, training, and certifications. Desiree, does that help?
It does. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't, like, I have 2 master's degrees. And if they're asking for, let's say, a bachelor's in law, but my master's is in that, you know, I want to make sure that I have the right.
Yeah, you can add them in any order. But this is a reverse chronological resume. So whether you're talking experience or whether you are talking education, it is most current first, but I'm making a distinction in education. Degrees always go at the top of that education list in reverse chronological order, followed by any certifications that are relevant to the job and training in reverse chronological order, again, relevant to the job.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Do not do a functional resume. Recruiters, hiring managers especially, dislike them. So please don't. If a salary range isn't listed on the application or in the job description, how do you answer the question on salary when you need to enter it? So yes, many applications will ask you for a salary range. If you can, skip it. If you can put in to be discussed, open, negotiable, most times it won't let you do that. So what I would do would be to go to salary.com. Okay. Or and I think I made those clickable links or not. Reverse chronological order means most current first. And that's
Reverse
okay.
chronological is the oldest job first because it's the
Oldest
longest
first.
job.
Correct. So you want to do something that's current first. Okay. So you, in
Even,
terms of the
even though
salary,
the last job that I had was just 2 years as opposed to 25 years previous and not the job that I wanted.
so unless you're not going to include that last job on your resume anywhere, okay,
Well,
and just leave
to
that.
not do that.
Exactly. So you need to put it in there. You need, and what I would do on that is saying, while I was looking for X position or to move back into this kind of a role, but even if it's not the job you wanted to do, okay, you still picked up valuable skills that you can add to the resume and the LinkedIn profile. I just wouldn't talk about it much, but it still needs to be listed.
Okay.
Okay. Oops. And I'm not sure. I'm just doing this very quickly.
Linda, I have a question for you. Please give me your opinion. When you've been self-employed for X amount of years, how significant is it to list the names of the clients that you've assisted
If
through
they are
your
relevant,
self-employment?
if they are relevant to the job that you want to do, and in other words, if they're people that the company would recognize, it would be significant to them, you can. You might list a couple, you don't have to list all of them. Okay. More important would be, so let's say you were doing some project work or consulting work, and this is true, even if you were doing contracts, and we can specifically talk about how to add that portfolio career to your resume. Okay, and I meant to add that and didn't. Ask me that question next week in terms of the portfolio careers. We're going to do a whole section, by the way, on portfolio careers.
Okay.
We're going to talk about adding that contract work so that it doesn't look as though you're a job hopper. Okay.
Okay.
But it depends. So whatever. Last question. Oh, I want to talk about the salary issue on the applications before I go away. So payscale.com, salary.com, look for relevant information. You can also look for companies or positions in areas that are similar. So AJ, where do you live?
Chicago, but we're moving to Las Vegas.
Okay. So what I would do would be, believe it or not, I know it sounds strange, but I often recommend that people look for a similar job in Colorado and use that kind of a salary range for the ones that they're talking about. If they can't find relevant information for the location that they're looking at. So AJ, I would look at salary ranges on salary.com and payscale.com from Las Vegas.
Thank you.
Okay. And I would look at, see whether or not they list job listing or salary ranges there. But the reason that I like looking for the jobs in Colorado is that they are one of the states that is extremely good about posting realistic ranges. And for example, in Illinois, that cost of living is very similar to ours. And so it's something that you can use. Okay. Now, listing the salary on the application in many cases is going to be required. You can also try, although some companies are getting wise to this, you can put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of an actual number. Some applicant tracking systems are now kicking that back and saying, you're not answering the question. But when the applicant tracking system accepts it, then recruiters are telling me that, gee, that's a smart person. They want to talk about it rather than have it here. I've never had a person kicked out or denied an interview because of that if the applicant tracking system accepts it. Now, sometimes as a recruiter, I might put in looking for something between X and Y to prioritize those resumes, but usually not. The thing about the putting in that number is trying to be as realistic as you can based upon what the job is actually looking for. If nobody's going to hold you to that, it is a screening question. When you are in the interview itself and they're asking you, there are lots of ways of dealing with it, okay, including turning it back on them. Tell me what the range is, and I'll be happy to tell you if I can work within it. What's your budget? Okay. Can we talk about this later when you know more about me and I know more about you? If they really press you, then the response is based on what I know now. Okay. I think I'm looking for X to Y, which gives you the ability to negotiate at the end. But you always want to get the information from them first if you can. And trust me, they know what it is. Even outside recruiters know what that range is. And in Illinois, if you're looking for a job in Illinois, they are required to put a range on if the company has more than 15 employees. Thirteen states now require it. There are others that are looking at it as well. But not all states are requiring them to do it accurately. New York, for example, I've seen many of those ranges listed as anywhere from 15,000 to 400,000 is the range, which we all know is not right. Okay, we went really long today, and that's okay. Sorry about that. And for those of you who hung in with me, I appreciate it. Okay. Reminder, since I haven't done that before, to copy the chat. I'm going to turn off the recording.